Hi everybody, this is Bentley the Compost Guy Christie here again, and I just wanted to provide a bit of a follow-up video to my last video featuring my worm-in system. As you may recall, I added 15 pounds of food waste to my system, and that was actually about 3 days ago. I think, what are we here? I think this is Tuesday, and it was okay, maybe 4 days ago. It was last Friday, anyway. Not feeling very good at math at the moment. And it's pretty cool. Everything's been working out quite well. This system hasn't started stinking to high heaven as I thought it might. As you may recall, I removed some worm compost from the bottom down and put it into this bucket down below, and I said I was actually going to remove a bunch more after the video was over, but I didn't end up doing that, and there's been some settling. I can tell that some of the material has settled down towards the bottom of the system, but I'm actually really blown away with how far the level has gone down here. Now, some of you may remember that I basically had it mounded. It was practically coming out of the system when I added the material. And after the video was over, I ended up adding some aged compost and some peat moss just to help to cover up everything so that it wasn't completely exposed. And it was literally mounded up like that. So it's kind of cool to see what's happening here. Now I should mention that while the worms are certainly playing an important role here, there are a wide variety of other creatures in here. And one of the actual negative side effects of doing this crazy overfeeding stuff is that I've ended up with a pretty serious fungus gnat infestation in this worm-in. So I definitely don't recommend that people try this at home, at least not if you have an aversion to these sorts of creatures. I'm pretty easygoing, and I tend to be sort of flying by the seat of my pants a lot with this stuff, and I don't worry too much. And my wife happens to be a very forgiving woman, so I tend to get these fungus gnats and fruit flies every so often due to my bad habits. But anyway, so there are quite a few fungus gnats, and I'm sure that the larvae of those fungus gnats are playing an important role in the system. But there's a wide range of other creatures as well, and I've got a digital point and shoot camera here, so I don't think this is going to look all that clear, but you can see that white stuff down there. Those are springtails, and the bin is absolutely loaded with them. So that's certainly one creature that's playing an important role apart from the worms. And yeah, you're really probably not going to be able to see most of what I'm looking at here, but I can also see absolutely unbelievable numbers of mites. There's little round mites, which are very common to worm composting systems, and there's also some really teeny tiny mites running around in this banana peel here. Let's just tour around a little bit more. You can see some of the worms. There's some pretty dense concentrations in various locations. Of course, they're going to be concentrated where the really wet material is. There's a good little patch of them. And again, let me warn people here. If I had done this in any kind of a plastic Rubbermaid tub type of system, like in some of the videos that I've made, those types of systems, this would be a nightmare. I didn't do anything with this waste material. It's just chunky material. I didn't really consider what I was putting in. So again, for any newcomers out there, I highly recommend you follow the common sense principles of vermicomposting, not listen to me here. But hopefully this is providing a bit of an entertaining follow along anyway. But yeah, so there's lots of worms in here. So people have asked how many worms are in the system. In all honesty, I have no idea. When I first started it back in October, I added very few worms. One of my early goals was to see how big of a population I could grow in the system, and I didn't really feed it all that much for the first while. It's only really recently, in the past few weeks or so, that I've been feeding it really heavily. But what's really cool is that I've seen the population just seems to have exploded ever since I started adding all this food material, and that's what redworms will do. They'll basically expand to deal with whatever volume of material you've got in there. But again, I mean, you got to be really careful, because obviously if conditions get to the point where they're dangerous for the worms, they're not going to do very well. And in a closed system, you're talking about really poor aeration, so not enough oxygen. There's going to be things like ammonia production from excess nitrogen. If the carbon to nitrogen ratio is too low, you can end up with some ammonia volatilization. There's a fancy word of the day. Some ammonia release, essentially. So keep that in mind. But with the kind of aeration you're seeing in a system like this, you can get away with a lot. And in fact, this system is such good aeration that I do need to add water every so often. And with all these huge amounts of food waste that I've been adding, I've been okay lately. But especially around the edges, I'll find that it dries out a fair bit. And I'll just come along with a spray bottle. And you don't want to add too much, because it's going to end up just sort of pouring down into the bottom bin. But if you do make a sort of habit of a daily dribble here and there, you're going to probably end up in good shape and keep the worms happy, because they love it wet. The ultimate is a really wet system with lots of oxygen, and if you can pull that off, you're laughing. So that's basically that. It looks like we are in good shape, apart from the fungus gnats, of course. Like I said, the level has gone down nicely. There's certainly an odor here and there when I dig around, but by no means am I gassing out my family here with this overfed system. So I'll certainly provide some more updates as things progress. Thanks again for tuning in. This is Bentley the Compost Guy Christie, and if you want to follow along with my Worm In Journal blogging entries, be sure to check out my Redworm Composting website, where you'll find all of those listed. Alright, so thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.